The abyss was just too deep. The wind was just too violent. The world sat there with its arms crossed, just waiting for us to fail. They said with pure arrogance, foreign experts said this bridge was impossible. We built it. While the skeptics were busy drawing up doubts, we were busy molding steel. They flat out underestimated our industrial muscle and our mental grit. American engineering doesn't take orders from fear or uncertainty. We proved that our precision logistics is an unbeatable weapon on the job site. The truth is simple, and it's a bitter pill for our rivals to swallow. Foreign experts said this bridge was impossible. We built it. This is the triumph of will over chaos. If you're a man who honors the ingenuity and the sheer power of our infrastructure, hit that subscribe button right now. Your presence here is what ensures we'll keep defending the technical excellence that the rest of the world tries to copy, but can never quite reach. We are on a dead-set mission to hit our 1,000 subscriber goal, and we need patriots like you to help strengthen this legacy of elite knowledge. Topic 1. The Hoover Dam Bypass. Shaking the world's confidence, picture the scene. The massive Black Canyon, a volcanic rock abyss where the wind howls like a warning that man has no business being there. This was the stage where the Mike O'Callahan-Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge began to take life. While experts from overseas just folded their arms and called it pure technical madness. To them, raising a concrete arch of that magnitude without center supports and under such brutal conditions was a fatal construction logistics error just waiting to happen in front of the world's cameras. The truth is, conventional engineering was shaking in its boots at the thought of holding up massive concrete sections hundreds of feet in the air without everything collapsing into the Colorado River. While the skeptics were hunting for math errors, our generals on the ground were already drawing up a supply chain that looked like sci-fi for its time. If you want to understand how the impossible becomes a reality, you've got to study the sheer rigor of the cableway system used there. It's the kind of solution you find in classic asset management books like those by Peter Drucker. I remember looking over the records of this build and realizing the secret wasn't just in the cement, but in the pride of men who don't take no for an answer. When precision logistics hit the field, every load movement was a silent middle finger to the foreign experts predicting an imminent disaster in Nevada. It was as if every piece of structural steel set in place was one more brick in the wall of our industrial and technical sovereignty. Deep down, they didn't count on our ability to turn a geographic nightmare into a showcase of power and resilience. Topic 2. The invisible war against the canyon winds. Black Canyon isn't just a place of stunning beauty. It's a brutal wind tunnel that defies any conventional engineering logic. For the foreign experts, those gusts topping 60 miles per hour were proof that the arch would never stay upright during assembly. However, what they called an impassable obstacle we saw as a necessary adjustment in our construction logistics, treating the wind not as an enemy but as a variable to be tamed. This is when field experience is worth more than any office degree, because nature doesn't negotiate with anyone who isn't prepared. Imagine trying to balance multi-ton sections while the air is trying to shove everything into the abyss. That's where supply chain precision and technical grit become your only anchor to win this invisible war. Engineers deployed real-time weather monitoring systems that would have made any computer of that era look like a toy. If you want to learn how to handle high-stakes crises, I recommend studying extreme risk management manuals like ISO 31000 applied to natural disaster scenarios. You need the cold-bloodedness of a strategist to know exactly when to push forward and when to pull back to protect the most precious asset, lives and the schedule. I've seen smaller projects get wiped out by simple storms because the leadership ignored the nature factor just to save a few pennies. On the Hoover Dam bypass, every tensioned steel cable was a declaration that American will is stronger than the desert climate. When you understand that real strength lies in smart adaptation, the fear disappears and all that's left is the flawless execution of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. This mastery over the invisible is what truly separates the men from the boys on the site, and it was only the beginning of a show of force that would leave the world jaw-dropped. Topic 3. High-wire logistics. The concrete symphony. Pouring a concrete arch of this size, hundreds of feet in the air, isn't just grunt work. It's a choreographed dance where the supply chain has to run like a Swiss watch. In Black Canyon, the challenge was keeping a constant flow of material through an overhead cable system that seemed to flip the bird to gravity with every bucket trip. While international critics sat around waiting for a math mistake, Our construction logistics guaranteed that every cubic yard of concrete arrived at the exact temperature and consistency required. To master this level of execution, you've got to study the concept of lean construction, focusing on the total elimination of bottlenecks that stall progress. A lot of people think just having the best gear is enough, but the real magic happens in the coordination between the batch plant and the guys at the tip of the arch. Imagine the pressure of dumping tons of material into a suspended form while the whole world watches your every move, looking for a crack. If you want to level up your professional game, dig deep into real-time logistics and waste management. That's what separates a master from a mere laborer. On the Hoover Dam bypass, the precision was so absolute that waste was cut down to almost zero, proving that American efficiency is, above all else, a matter of mental discipline. In my time walking through major projects, I've realized that what kills a schedule isn't a lack of cash, but a lack of sync between processes. Watching that arch close in the middle of nowhere was like watching a symphony where the conductor was the logistical planning and the musicians were the crane and rigging operators. That wasn't just an engineering win. It was a loud and clear message that when Americans decide to move mountains or join them, they do it with an unmatched technical elegance. This harmony between man, machine, and time is what builds empires. In every piece of structural steel, there served as a foundation for something even bigger yet to come. Topic 4. Blueprints written in iron. American standards versus the world. On paper, plenty of countries can draw up pretty bridges, but when it's time to turn risks into reality, our engineering standards are in a whole different league. The Mike O'Callaghan-Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge wasn't built on guesswork. It was built on a regulatory rigor that the rest of the world still tries to copy without luck. Using American structural steel means trusting an alloy that carries decades of history, sweat, and a toughness that doesn't bend under outside pressure. If you want to lead big projects, you need to treat technical standards not as annoying rules, but as the code of honor that ensures your work outlives us all. For those chasing excellence, reading the blueprint isn't enough. You have to understand the soul of the structure, which requires a deep dive into references like the AIC Steel Construction Manual. That's where the secret lies in how every connection and every beam was designed to hold up that monumental arch against gravity and time. Imagine that every bolt tightened in the Black Canyon was a message to the world that our supply chain of basic materials is superior in quality and reliability. A good practical tip is to run tight audits on your steel suppliers, making sure the source of the material is as solid as your reputation. I've been on sites where they tried to cut corners by switching to a cheaper steel supplier. The result was a nightmare of rework and safety issues that almost bankrupted the company. In logistics for projects this size, cheap ends up being expensive. The shortcut is the fastest way to fail, something our masters of the past knew all too well. By prioritizing the U.S. quality standard, you aren't just buying material. You're investing in a construction logistics tradition that puts safety above everything else. This foundation of iron and values is what lets us move on to even tougher challenges, where mistakes aren't just forbidden, they're flat out unacceptable. Topic 5. The ghost of failure. Why others would have quit. In any project that pushes the limits of logic, there's a moment of silence where the fear of failure tries to take root on the site. On the Hoover Dam bypass, this ghost would show up on those cold Nevada nights when the construction logistics challenges seemed too big even for the old pros. What separates success from ruin is the general mindset that doesn't back down from the unexpected, keeping the team focused while the rest of the world bets on the fall. To build that kind of resilience, I recommend reading Self-Help by Samuel Smiles, which teaches how character and perseverance shape the destiny of great nations and their engineers. Imagine being stuck in the middle of an abyss, with millions of dollars on the line, and realizing a supply chain vendor failed or the weather took a turn for the worse. That's the point where most foreign companies would have waved the white flag and asked for reinforcements or endless delays. However, the American foreman knows that idle time is a cancer that eats through profit and crew morale, acting fast to recalculate the route without losing his cool. A practical example of this is always having a detailed contingency plan B and C, allowing the work to change rhythm without ever stopping completely, keeping the machine grinding. I've personally faced situations where a mistake seemed inevitable, but authority is earned when you decide that failure simply isn't an option in your vocabulary. Seeing that bridge progress even under outside pressure was a living lesson that engineering is 10% math and 90% guts and people management. When you kill the doubt in the workplace, the structural steel seems to fit together easier and the logistics flow like gravity is on your side. This indomitable spirit is what keeps our infrastructure standing while others crumble, paving the way for the final triumph that no one will be able to ignore. Topic 6. A monument to defiance. Lessons for the next century. When the two halves of the arch finally met over the Colorado River, the world didn't just see concrete and steel. It saw a lesson in sovereignty that'll echo for centuries. The Mike O'Callahan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge is living proof that when engineering is paired with courage, the impossible becomes a landmark on the map. For the skeptics who doubted us, the final result was a historical silencer, proving that elite construction logistics is our biggest competitive edge on the global stage. Looking at that structure is understanding that progress doesn't wait for the timid, it belongs to those who dare to design the future with iron fists. For you, the man looking to leave a legacy, this build teaches that managing a resilient supply chain is what sustains any leader's long-term vision. It's not just about finishing a project. It's about setting a new gold standard that forces the competition to try and keep up with you. A pro tip: study the post-build reports of major national projects, like those found in the ASCE American Society of Civil Engineers archives, to soak up what was learned in the heat of battle. Every challenge beaten, there is a tool you can put in your box to face today's market storms with the calm of someone who's already been down the road. As we wrap up this technical journey, I realize that the real structural steel holding up that bridge is the unshakable will of a people who refuse to accept limits. I've seen plenty of theories fail, but the practice of American efficiency, when done with discipline, is a force of nature that can't be stopped. Let the history of this bridge be your North Star, a reminder that logistics is the art of making the difficult look routine and the impossible look concrete. The world can keep on doubting, but as long as we keep our general mindset in command, we'll be the ones calling the shots on what can be built under the sun. Conclusion. Now that you've seen how American will turn an impassable abyss into a monument of sovereignty, the question is, are you going to stay a passive spectator, or are you going to take strategic command of your career? The knowledge we've shared here about construction, logistics, and the triumph at Black Canyon isn't meant to be tucked away in some mental drawer. It's meant to be put to work tomorrow morning, at the very first minute of your shift. Look at your own challenges. Question every bottleneck in your supply chain, and don't settle for anything less than the precision of a general, because in elite engineering, every hour of hesitation is $1 million you'll never see again. Are you ready to be the pro who stops the bleeding and leads projects toward real profit, or are you going to wait for the next collapse to learn the hard way? I want to hear from you. Which of these monumental challenges on the Hoover Dam bypass impressed you the most with its technical audacity? Leave a comment below, because your experience is what strengthens our community of engineers who don't back down from a fight. If this content broadened your vision and gave you the tools to play in the big leagues, don't leave without subscribing and hitting those notifications. We are on a mission to build an elite group of patriotic engineers and managers, and your sub is vital to hitting our 1,000 subscriber goal. The next level of heavy engineering is waiting for those with the guts to act. Don't let the clock run out, because in our world the clock never stops charging for mediocrity.